Icy winds sweep across the sea from Russia, and Hokkaido, Japan's northernmost island, bears the brunt of it. Most of its wildlife has more in common with Siberia than the rest of Japan, and its wild character still remains today.
Welcome to Pokemon's 4th generation. The Sinnoh region's wild character is on full display with over 100 new Pokemon, and you'll need them to become a champion. A journey stretching across time and space. This is Pokémon Diamond and Pearl. Welcome folks, I'm Livvvid. Released for North America in April 2007, Pokémon Diamond and Pearl were the entries into Pokemon's 4th generation, and on a new console, the Nintendo DS, featuring a second touchscreen and stylus to interact with games on the new platform. Diamond and Pearl share mostly the same gameplay, but of course have their version-exclusive Pokemon. Then the story is slightly altered to showcase the new box legendary Pokemon. Dialga, the temporal Pokemon, and Palkia, the spatial Pokemon. Pokemon Platinum, the upper version to these games, would be released in 2009, and that will get its own video eventually. It's been nearly 20 years since these games came out, and there have been some updated games and lore from Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Pokemon Legends Arceus. The lore in Pokemon Legends greatly expands the story elements in the games I'll be talking about today, but I like my videos to be period pieces to a different time, and we didn't know what lore would be added almost 2 decades later, so I won't be referring to it here. These games take place in the Sinnoh region. You play as a young Pokemon trainer aiming to become the champion of the region. This region has 107 new Pokemon, making the total Pokemon by this point 493. There are tons of entirely new Pokemon, but also many older Pokemon got new evolved forms or pre-evolved forms. You'll encounter a villainous rabble that call themselves Team Galactic, who are trying to remake the universe with either Dialga or Palkia, depending on which game you're playing. It's a story balancing time, space, and even emotion. Team Galactic must be stopped before you can challenge for the Pokemon League title. I don't really have a positive or negative bias coming into these games. This was still my hiatus era of Pokemon around the time these games were released, so I never played them. My only memory of these games back in 2007 was my friend Carlos pulling out his Pearl version during downtime at high school. This was a shocking moment because we were freshmen in high school desperately trying to not get made fun of by seniors. And here comes Carlos pulling out his Pokemon game. Pokemon wasn't cool anymore. Despite all of us friends asking him what he was doing like he was breaking some sort of law, Carlos stood defiant. He said he didn't care what people thought of him, he wanted to play his Pokemon game. And a pretty incredible thing happened. Many of us in the class, including seniors, started openly talking about Pokemon and saying which games and critters were our favorites. I am not exaggerating about how important that moment was for me as a kid, and I don't think Carlos even knows how important that was to molding an aspect about me. From that day on, I didn't care what people thought of me playing video games. And you know what? It usually worked out for me like it did for Carlos. It turns out a lot more people have interest in video games than I thought. I'm playing Diamond version on my modified 3DS XL, which is equipped for both capturing gameplay and has a GameCube controller dongle so I can play with a GameCube controller. It's pretty cool. Since I'm using legit hardware, I can even transfer in some old friends. I even had help along my journey from community members just like you. I streamed over on my second channel, which focuses only on streams, and got feedback from my subscribers here on YouTube. Shout out to Perennial and Wes. Alright, let's get started. Our journey begins in the little village of Twin Leaf Town. We're greeted by a news broadcast about a sighting of a red Gyarados at the Lake of Rage in the Johto region. That broadcast being both a callback and a hint of games to come in the future. We live at home with our mom, and we have no dad again. He never came back from getting Miltank milk. The player not selected will act as a type of mentor and assistant to the new professor, Rowan. Professor Rowan specializes in Pokemon evolution. His lab is in Sangam Town, where he works with Dawn and her family. His lab being in Sangam Town actually makes him the first professor up to this point who doesn't live in the player's hometown. Rowan has just returned to Sinnoh after 4 years studying Pokemon in the Kanto region with Professor Oak. A local boy named Barry is our best friend. He's an excitable fellow, always eager to be on the move. He crashes into things a lot, and I just started calling him Barry Thud, because thud is the sound he makes when he slams into things. Barry and the player character are on the search for that mysterious red Gyarados that they think may be at their local lake. I think that's a very understandable thing for a couple kids to assume. This is where the player character meets Professor Rowan and Dawn. After you and Barry are ambushed, you find Rowan's briefcase, which happens to have some Pokemon that could help defend you. This is where you select your starter: Chimchar, Piplup, and Turtwig. I have to say, these are some of my favorite starters of the series. I'm serious, I love their designs. I still like Gen 1 starters the best, which is always going to be hard to topple with nostalgia, but I think Gen 4 are my second favorite starters of the series. They all start off cute, but Piplup has to take the crown for cuteness. Once they all get to their final forms, something interesting happens. Infernape, Empoleon, and Torterra. In the Pokemon series, we're used to having a triangle system with the starters. Fire beats grass, grass beats water, water beats fire. In Generation 4, we get a different approach. Infernape is fire fighting, Empoleon is water steel, Torterra is grass and ground. What a perfect sync up, since I already love all these starters. I have even more incentive to pick whichever one I want, and I really don't care that Barry, our best friend and rival now, will pick the good one against us. I chose Turtwig. Although I like all the starters, when Turtwig becomes Torterra, I just can't get enough of this thing. I mean, he's got a freaking continent on its back. Barry will of course choose the one that has the initial type advantage against you. But as I just mentioned, this only lasts for a little while. Professor Rowan lets us hang on to our starters in return for helping him complete the Pokédex. We'll encounter Barry again numerous times, as he is our rival for these games. He's so eager to start his journey, he bolts from the lab before he even gets a Pokédex, so I guess it's just on us. Along the journey, we'll be collecting 8 gym badges from gym leaders across the region. After we collect them all, we can challenge for the league title. We are now free to travel the Sinnoh region. Sinnoh is based on the real Japanese island of Hokkaido, and even parts of the southern Russian island, Sakhalin. Hokkaido is a mountainous and rugged island which actually came under the fold of Japan later on in its history, which means it's more of a frontier island. It was even referred to in feudal Japan as the land of barbarians. The center of the island is mountainous and cascades down into multiple plains. The largest plain in all of Japan is actually located in Hokkaido. Hokkaido is also known for its wide-ranging economic diversity: agriculture, fisheries, lumber, manufacturing, oil and coal, tourism, and even a little bit of space industry. Sinnoh largely incorporates much of Hokkaido's geography and even cities which are pretty closely placed where their real-world counterparts are. Mount Coronet dominates the region and acts as a geographic divider, cutting the island in half. And you'll come back several times to explore more areas, as different hidden machines will open more of it up to the player. The final lead up to the story will also require the player to come back here too. Backtracking can be good or bad depending on the execution. When it comes to Pokemon, this type of design has been here from the start, and it's something I truly don't mind. I like revisiting older towns or caves that couldn't be fully explored prior to getting other hidden machines later in game. When you return to those locations, you are eager to find out what that item was hidden behind that tree or that boulder. I reflect on where I was the last time I was in these locations, and I get slight nostalgia in an isolated way to the playthrough. So when it comes to Mount Coronet, I actually like its progression and having to come back here every now and then. It's central to the story and literally central to the Sinnoh region, and I like how that's all tied together. Mount Coronet creating a mountainous barrier to the region creates biodiversity, like in the case of Shellos. Its form changing depending on if it's from the west or east sea. This also gives a sense of scale to the region. The real island of Hokkaido is huge. Having an eastern and western sea with varying Pokemon inhabiting these halves of the region furthers a sense of diversity both in roster and locales. Sinnoh has one of the more fleshed out explanations for not only the region's creation, but maybe all creation in the Pokemon world. It is said that the legendary Pokemon Arceus made Mount Coronet, then the rest of the Sinnoh region, then the rest of the world using its 1,000 arms. I'll get more into these myths later, but Arceus is basically God or something. We've come a long way from innocent little pink floaty legendary Pokemon from Generation 1 like Mew. Now we're talking the entire genesis of the Pokemon universe. Things are getting very serious. My final team for my own playthrough ended up being Torterra, Rampardos, Skuntank, and Abomasnow. I did like my team and played with several Pokemon I've never used before. but it was rough going at first assembling my team. The roster of options in this Pokédex feels really thin. In a couple of my videos, I have chosen Fire-type starters, with the logic being that it always felt like the games prior to Generation 4 had a lack of Fire-type options. But when I played the Hoenn games, it felt less prominent because they added some cool Fire types somewhat earlier in the games than I was used to in Generation 1 and 2. So I ended up taking the Grass-type Turtwig, only to not see a Fire-type until Ponyta around the second gym. And I'm probably just being picky, but I didn't want to use Ponyta. I personally like using as many new generation Pokemon as I can when I play a new entry into the series. Well, Ponyta is from Generation 1. I just wasn't excited to add it to my team. This lack of new generation diversity was pretty apparent as soon as the game started. You're throwing a lot of Generation 1 Pokemon, which was strange because a critique of Generation 2 was it also threw a lot of Generation 1 Pokemon at you in the early game. But by Generation 3, they fixed that problem by having a ton of new Pokemon up front as their journey begins. But now we're back to the same issue again in Generation 4. Even with questionable roster choices that don't feel fresh, there's another issue. There are tons of conditions on top of an already thin roster. Honey is a new item that can be applied to particular trees to get encounters with unique Pokemon. You have to wait 6 hours to see what ends up appearing, and some of the results are cool. There are new Generation 4 Pokemon like Burmy, Combee, Cherubi, and Munchlax. But God forbid you want the Munchlax because it's a 1% encounter rate and has its own unique mechanic where only 4 random trees in the game based on your trainer ID and your secret ID will be Munchlax trees. Look at how this is calculated. This is nonsense. And even then, you still have a chance to encounter older generation Pokemon like Wurmple. If that wasn't enough, there is also a 10% chance you encounter nothing at all. If you wait over 24 hours, your honey and the Pokemon that would have been waiting for you are also gone. The honey tree stuff isn't fun. You can get legendary Pokemon by doing less work than this. The really disappointing thing is how they teased Munchlax back in Pokemon Gale of Darkness. It hinted at Generation 4 and all the new possibilities. But it was probably very unlikely you would even see one in the wild during a playthrough of these games if you didn't look it up on the internet. Then there is the reintroduction of day and night cycles. First implemented in Generation 2, these cycles made the games feel real. You could have the clock in-game matching the day and time it was in real life. It gave the illusion that the game was still functioning whether you were there or not. I liked these features as a kid because it made the world feel real, and I had all the time in the world. But as I got older, and more grouchy, I admit this kind of thing gets in the way now. That's because certain Pokemon or events will only happen on particular days and times. Like in Generation 2, it was Lapras not showing up at Union Cave until Friday. The Hoenn games did technically have an in-game clock, but for the most part these day and time features in the form they were in Generation 2 were not utilized. In Generation 4, they're back, only to compound the issue about restrictive roster. For example, on Route 202, Kricketot will only appear in the morning or night, but not during the day. Murkrow or Misdreavus are version exclusives, but neither will appear in Eterna Forest unless it's the nighttime. You get the idea. I know many people probably won't agree with me on this aspect. People like the day and nighttime features, and I like them aesthetically. I think the changing of day and night is cool and makes the world feel real. I guess if there was an alternative, I would say never make it impossible to get certain Pokemon during the day versus night. Just make it more rare. Murkrows may be nocturnal. They move around more at night, I get what they're doing. But they don't go extinct during the day, right? Maybe one hasn't quite made it to its daytime sleeping location yet or something, I don't know. But just make it a 1% chance during the day rather than not at all. I know I can change the date and time on my DS, but it's annoying. And I don't think that's even what the devs wanted you to do. It's not like there's an NPC in the game that hints that you should change the date and time of your DS to capture what you need. But hey, that's just day and night cycles. What about other restrictions? Spiritomb will only show up when linking with people in the underground 32 times. Maybe this was easier online or over Wi-Fi, I'm not sure. It's not like I can do that stuff legitimately anymore. This can be done by yourself technically. I have several DS and 3DS consoles, but I don't want to interact with myself 32 times in the underground. There was a dual slot method which was pretty neat. If you have one of the younger DS or DS Lites, they have a Game Boy Advance port which allowed you to not only play your Game Boy Advance games, but could also be used in Pokemon games. You'd place in one of your Generation 3 games and you could encounter older Pokemon from different generations. Or even transfer your old Pokemon into these games. But only after beating the game and getting the National Pokédex. Alright, I went in pretty hard on the roster. What about new Pokemon themselves? Are they good? I think they are. The starters are some of my favorite designs of the series. I love Bidoof and Bibarel. The new fossil Pokemon, Rampardos and Bastiodon, are fierce and imposing. Lucario and its fighting steel type are unique. And there are a lot more new lines that are good. There is only one new line that I take issue with. Lopunny. Why? It looks like if the girl in Who Framed Roger Rabbit actually had to be the rabbit. This is supposed to be a children's game. Older generations got a lot of love in this roster. For Generation 1, we have Licky, Magmortar, Electivire, Tangrowth, Porygon Z, Rhyperior, Mime Jr., Happiny, Glaceon, and Leafeon, and Magnezone. For Generation 2, you have Yanmega, Bonsly, Weavile, Mismagius, Honchkrow, Mamoswine, Togekiss, and Gliscor. Gen 3 additions include Gallade, Probopass, Dusknoir, and Frostlass. I just like the sheer amount of previous generation evolutions. I'm not against that thinking at all, but I don't think that they should count towards the new generation of Pokemon you want to add for development. Say the devs want to add 120 new Pokemon to a generation. I think anytime they make an evolution for a previous generation, that shouldn't count towards the development's 120 new goal. This is because, inevitably, they will add an older generation Pokemon to the game because they made a new evolution and it could be used in this generation. Instead of putting new Pokemon towards the end game, how about put most of the new Pokemon right up front? And by the post game, you start to see familiar Pokemon that also happen to have new evolutions. Gender differences were added in this generation and give more personality to some Pokemon. And it also made a lot of sense. Most Pokemon are based off real animals. Some real animals have gender distinctions. Sometimes it's color, or maybe it's size. Female Pikachus have a notch on their tails. Female Alakazams have smaller mustaches. My favorite second generation Pokemon is Heracross, and the female version has a heart-shaped horn. Not every Pokemon has gender differences, and even the ones that exist are sometimes hard to see, but it's a really cool detail added to Pokemon that makes them feel more varied and unique. You want a Heracross, but maybe you specifically want one with a heart-shaped horn, so it makes your hunts more intriguing. The gym leaders in Sinnoh are something I really liked about these games. There are echoes of the past, like Rourke as the first gym leader who is also a rock-type trainer, like Brock was in the first games. The gym is located in Orberg City, which is a mining town bursting with natural resources. It's fitting that a rock-type gym leader would represent this town, and this is something I wish was leaned into more with the franchise. Maybe it's a town's natural resources, its industry, or biome. Or maybe the town is famous for its Pokemon racing, so you have a gym dedicated to speed and not necessarily one specific typing. Maybe this other town is known for its pink flowers, so the gym leader leans into the local aesthetic by having a bunch of pink Pokemon. I think gym leaders like Rourke and the town they represent makes the gym and town feel more memorable because it ties the town to the battle itself. Rourke's Cranados is tough, and when it uses Headbutt, it hits hard, and it may even flinch your Pokemon. Gardenia is the second gym leader in Eterna City and specializes in grass types. She even has a Turtwig just like me. That really stood out to me. I'm not used to seeing starters on gym leader teams in the early game. But hey, limited roster, am I right? Neither of the first two gyms were that interesting as far as puzzles go, but the third gym in Veilstone City would change that up. It's led by Maylene, the fighting type gym leader. Her gym has these shifting panels that you have to push and orient to proceed through the gym. Her Lucario is a really awesome Pokemon that may be my favorite Generation 4 Pokemon. Crasher Wake is the fourth gym leader and is probably the most interesting gym leader name I've come across. He's the leader of Pastoria City's gym and specializes in water Pokemon. Although his gym dealt with rising and lowering water levels that gave me shivers thinking about Ocarina of Time's water temple, I still made it to him. Fantina is the fifth gym leader in Hearthome. She's a ghost-type trainer. She's pretty stoked about contests, which are famous in Hearthome City. Luckily for me, I had a lot of dark-type attacks like Bite and Pursuit ready to go. Byron is the sixth gym leader in Conolave City. He is the father of Rourke, the first gym leader. And Byron's father is an old man who gives you an Explorer's Kit, but more on that later. Byron has a Bastiodon, which... Okay, I changed my mind. Bastiodon is my favorite Generation 4 Pokemon. I love any animal, living, extinct, or even fictional with Dawn at the end of it. Mastodon is one of my favorite extinct animals. And my favorite band. Megalodon were massive sharks that are now extinct. And also the name of a Mastodon song. Or how about Mastodon from Magic the Gathering? Snowpoint City is where Candace is, and she is of course an Ice-type gym leader. Her gym's puzzle is my favorite. You slide down different levels of the gym, smashing into snowballs to clear the way to battle her. She gets extra points for a gym theme matching the town she's in. What I find cool about her team is that all of her Pokemon are local Pokemon you could technically have on your team if you train them up. Volkner is the final gym leader at Sunyshore City. He's apparently been so dominant that he's been bored for a long time without having faced any worthy challengers, spending much of his time renovating his gym since nobody ever comes in. Volkner is an electric type gym leader. All that time renovating his gym has paid off because I love his puzzles too. It's a series of gears you have to interact with to shift their orientation to progress to Volkner. Once you finally face Volkner, it's an interesting battle. He even has an Octillery, which is a water type, but hey, I'm not against it. I think I've shifted my opinion on trainers specializing in types must having those types of Pokemon. I like when they shake it up, or part of having a type-specific team, maybe utilizing Pokemon not of that type to strengthen the rest of the team. Oh, and before you leave Sunyshore City, you see Jasmine from Johto. It's so nice to see her. Oh, and she's got a gift. It's another HM. Thanks, Jasmine. Traveling through Sinnoh and collecting badges was made better by the really diverse surroundings. There is a great marsh full of mud. Floroma Town has beautiful flowers. Orberg is rough and industrial, and the treacherous and snowy path to Snowpoint City. Mount Coronet created a natural barrier affecting Pokemon development, but also created isolated communities with unique stories. Even the human architecture is varied. There's a huge cathedral in Hearthome along with its contest hall. Connolave Town has a calm and even ancient vibe to it. I would say Sinnoh up to this point in the series is probably in second place after Hoenn in terms of regional diversity. Diamond and Pearl added or touched up many features and design elements. My favorite has to be that there is now a physical and special split for individual moves. For example, fire-type moves are no longer exclusively based in special attack. You can now have a move like Flame Wheel that is fire-type but based on its physical attack stat. Let's talk to our old friend, Hitmonchan. Hitmonchan had a rough go in the last 3 generations. It's a fighting type Pokemon from Generation 1 and a Pokemon I've always wanted to be good. Back in Generation 1, it could learn Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch. Now how cool is that? The only problem was Hitmonchan's stats leaned heavily into physical attack and not special, which is what most of those moves were based in. Now those said punching moves are based on its physical attack while maintaining the elemental typing. By Generation 4, our Hitmoncant is now a Hitmoncan. The Pokétch is an item given to you in the beginning of the game and utilizes the nifty second screen on your DS. It has 25 apps, like the clock, a memo pad, and a calculator. It's pretty nifty, but by the time you have 25 apps, you need to press that little red button to cycle between all of them. Ugh, why? I'm not even that mad in a practical sense. I didn't really use these apps that much, but I respect that they're there. I'm more mad at how it was designed. Why only have one button that must cycle through all of the apps, with no way of going in the other direction even though you might be one app away? Like they could have made a touch and grab system to cycle through the different apps to take advantage of the stylus and navigate to the app you need. I'm probably being a bit harsh. It's easy for me to sit back and question this, but this was also an entirely new realm for Game Freak. Imagine designing games dealing with some graphics and pixels, but now you're having to incorporate and learn how to use touchscreen devices and mesh them into your games. That's tough. I'm probably being harsh. Amity Square is where you can stroll with cute Pokemon, but apparently my Pokemon weren't cute enough. You're saying my Cornados and Stunky aren't cute? You must have these Pokemon on the left in order to access the square. Once inside, you can walk around and pick up items. Even your Pokemon can pick up items every 200 steps. Many of these are accessories for the contest hall though. What is interesting about the Amity Square is how it foreshadows a feature in other games coming to Generation 4. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The graphics in Diamond and Pearl are strange. They're not terrible, but it's a cross between the old Generation 3 style and trying to give the impression of 3D. Sometimes certain objects will appear to be misaligned, like rooftops here, or bridge tiles. Someone did mention that this may be because I'm playing on the 3DS and not the original DS, but I'm not sure. I do like the terrain surrounding the Pokemon during battles though, that's a really nice touch. HMs are still a thing, and they've never been more annoying. HMs are hidden machines, and they are required overworld moves that take up precious move slots on your Pokemon in order to progress the game. Fortunately, there is our savior, Bidoof and Bibarel, who can almost learn all the moves you need. In Generation 3, the HM Beast of Burden equivalent was Tropius, who could even learn Fly. I like Beasts of Burden like Bidoof and Tropius. They're willing to learn these annoying moves to help us on our journey, so thank you. But there is one HM move the Bidoof line cannot learn, an HM required to take down one of the most annoying effects I've ever encountered in a Pokemon game. Fog! I hate it! It obscures the map and lowers accuracy during battle. The first time I realized what was going on, I had a complete meltdown. I couldn't see where I was going, and there is nothing I hate more than missing with my moves. I accidentally walked into a random trainer battle during one of these moments because I couldn't see where I was going, only to find out the fog had sharply lowered my accuracy. Then, my opponent and I danced around missing each other probably 3 times in a row each. It was ridiculous. Oh, I'm sorry, is the fog getting in the way of you watching this video? Well, let me just use the new HM, Defog. Ah, much better, right? If the Bidoof line doesn't even want to learn Defog, don't tell me it's worth having around. And we're not even done collecting HMs in this game, and HMs in general will not be removed for a few more generations. Eventually, you'll be given the Explorer's Kit by the old man who is Rourke's grandfather. The Explorer's Kit is used to enter the Underground. The Underground is a massive network of tunnels beneath the Sinnoh region. You explore the area and utilize the DS touchpad for mostly everything down here, but mainly for digging. You utilize a pick and hammer to carefully uncover tons of items like spheres, which act as the currency down here. You exchange spheres with the vendors underground to get items for your secret base, which is also located underground. You can also uncover held items, shards, evolutionary stones, and even fossils to resurrect fossil Pokemon. This is where my Carnados came from, and it was really cool getting a fossil Pokemon pretty early in game. But beware of traps everywhere. Traps utilize the touchscreen yet again, where you could blow leaves and fire away by directly blowing on the bottom screen. I admit this is pretty fun and interactive. The Underground seems to be where Game Freak was really trying to learn and push the boundaries of the DS, and I think it worked out pretty well. You can spend hours down here trying to collect items. I think it's more something you do while you're watching a movie or listening to music, but it's definitely not tedious or boring. The Valor Lakefront is a junction point between many areas of the game. It kind of looks like the Greek villages on the coast of the Aegean. The main attraction here is a 7 Stars restaurant where you can battle the customers in double battles. There will be a new assortment of trainers every day, which greatly helps with experience, but some of these people are rich. They give you tons of Pokebucks for defeating them. Another great place to train is the Iron Island. It's got pretty decently leveled Pokemon and trainers. There's even really rare Pokemon in the wild like Steelix. You get to meet up with a cool guy named Riley. You link up with trainers like Riley and Cheryl a few times in the game, which is a great way to earn some XP efficiently because you could take down multiple Pokemon in a battle. And when you're teamed up, your Pokemon will heal automatically after a battle. Riley will even give you an egg that contains Riolu, which I greatly appreciated as this line was one of my favorites from this generation. The Great Marsh acts as this region's new take on the Safari Zone, a place where you can catch rare or unique Pokemon. The Great Marsh takes advantage of the Hokkaido inspiration by incorporating the wetlands and marshes on the island. You walk around in a lot of mud, which also acts as a new rock item you throw at Pokemon when you're trying to catch them. There is also a no-step counter, which is a huge relief as a Generation 1 fan. If you're tired of getting stuck in mud, you can actually take the Marsh's train up and down the venue to get around to different areas quickly. The Pokemon here will change randomly each day, and you can even use the binoculars upstairs to see which Pokemon are occupying the marsh that day. Diamond and Pearl has really great music. The list of my favorite songs was actually pretty long, but I'll just pick a few. Then there are variations of songs depending on night and day, like Floroma Town. I know I'm not the biggest fan of day and night cycle interactions when it comes to Pokemon specifically, but I am a fan in terms of changing the setting and atmosphere. Having variations to many of the songs depending on day and night is the kind of thing that does make me like the distinction. I left out a lot more songs I like from Generation 4, but the video has to go forward. I think it's a quality original soundtrack all around. Ever since the beginning of Pokemon main series games, we've always had in-game trades. It allows you to trade Pokemon with in-game NPCs. So if you have nobody to trade with, like me, nearly 20 years after this game came out, you can still trade with NPCs. Enter Mindy the Cruel. Mindy will trade you a Haunter. When Haunter is traded, it evolves into Gengar, a very good Pokemon. But when you trade with Mindy, your Haunter doesn't evolve. Well, surely this is a mistake. Oh no, it's no mistake. Haunter is holding an Everstone, ensuring it cannot evolve. Game Freak was actively trolling us at this point. Why? What did we do? We bought the game! Team Galactic. Spacesuits and bowl cuts. Galactic are Sinnoh region's villainous group. Their credo is, everything belongs to Team Galactic. Look beyond the world. Space will become Team Galactic's. They're led by Cyrus. He seeks to create a new world, a world without strife. He seeks the power to create this new world. Cyrus believes that emotion gets in the way of this perfect new world. He seeks such little strife that he squabbles with us for the entire game. We march around the Sinnoh region either intentionally or accidentally running into them, messing up their plans the whole time. He has tons of minions and a lot of admins, all galactically influenced like Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. But this rabble is hiding in plain sight. I mean, they actually own real estate all over the region and proudly parade around in the open. One of their signs in Eterna City says, Team Galactic, we want your Pokemon. In order to achieve an emotionless new world, Cyrus needs the help of Dialga or Palkia. Obviously, Cyrus needs to be stopped. Helping on this mission is Cynthia. Cynthia is the regional champion of Sinnoh. She's also the first ever female champion in the core series games. She calls herself the researcher of myths and is fascinated by the local legends of ancient Pokemon and their origins. Her family lives in Celestic Town, but apparently her actual home region is a secret. Cynthia helps you at various points in the story, echoing how Steven Stone did the same thing back in the Hoenn games. She shows up quite a bit throughout the story to help you out, giving you HMs and advice. I'm still not sure how I feel about champions being this interactive in the story. I don't have some great thought on it or explanation of my feelings on this. Part of me understands that the most powerful trainer in the region would use their power to protect the region. But if that were the case, why isn't she taking on Team Galactic by herself? Cynthia is extraordinarily powerful. You have to be in order to be a champion. But on the flip side, are we to assume the regional champion would sit on the sidelines as a world-ending calamities are happening? I'm not sure. In order to control Dialga or Palkia, Cyrus needs to create the Red Chain, a tool powerful enough to tame either beast. Azelf, Uxie, and Mesprit, the legendary Pokemon of the lakes. Their collective power can create Cyrus his Red Chain. Team Galactic pretty ruthlessly goes after them at their respective lakes. They even blow up an entire lake. After trying and failing to save them in time, Cyrus accomplishes his goal of capturing them. With the Red Chain, Cyrus can enact the final phase of his plan to create a world free from emotion and strife. He speaks against some people considering Pokemon friends. He even takes shots at other criminal organizations from the past who see them as tools. Cyrus doesn't even see them as tools. He sees Pokemon as something to extract power from for himself. I just wanted to know more about Cyrus. Was he always like this? What happened in his past to make him despise emotion and not even see Pokemon as living beings but vessels of energy for him to steal? Apparently, he's so charismatic it doesn't even really matter what he's saying. This is a quote from one of his admins, Saturn. What our boss really wanted, even I don't know that. His confident manner of speaking, his logical words. I think people just became so enthralled by him. The more I think about what Cyrus aims to achieve, the more I think about what he gets when he achieves it. We as the player and citizens of Sinnoh should be in fear of this new world Cyrus seeks to create. He implies that the old world needs to be destroyed or purged. We're scared of him winning, but I think Cyrus should be afraid of him winning. So you've created a brand new universe in your own image, a world free from emotion, happiness, pain, joy, excitement, fear, compassion, all devoid from this new realm. Then what? I don't consider myself a very philosophical person. I can only speak from personal experience. Life is about strife. You're going to encounter bad things being done to you and people you care about, and it's not always fair. Maybe it's nice to think of a world without strife, but the answer can't be to purge any and all emotion. I would rather have the bad emotions with the good emotions, rather than no emotions at all. We must save the Sinnoh region and maybe even Cyrus from himself. You confront Cyrus at the summit of Mount Coronet. the Spear Pillar. What a fitting location for the beginning of the region and perhaps the end of it. As Cyrus calls upon either Dialga or Palkia to create his new world, you must fight through Mars and Jupiter. But Barry Thud is here to help. You know, he's our rival, but he's also our friend. We've had team-ups before, like with Lance and past entries, which was cool, but there's something different when it's your hometown buddy helping you take down the bad guys. After defeating Mars and Jupiter, the Lake Spirit Pokemon show back up to shatter the red chain shackling the legendary Pokemon. Cyrus vows to recreate the chain, but he can't do that without destroying us first. The Cyrus battle theme is heart-pounding. It does feel like the universe is on the line. The battle with Cyrus isn't too crazy. His Pokemon are pretty fast and seem to land some very lucky crits, but not much beyond that. After defeating Cyrus, he vows to see his plans through, to one day become a deity. Then there is a legendary Pokemon awaiting for you after the battle that you can catch. Dialga is Dragon and Steel type, while Palkia is Water and Dragon type. Both have super badass signature moves. Dialga has Roar of Time, and Palkia has Spatial Rend. Roar of Time has to be one of the coolest animations I've seen yet in the series. As far as Galactic goes, there's been a change in management, and a light rebranding. Saturn is now in charge of the headquarters and says the decisions of the team now rest with him. He also says that extremism is never the answer. As for Cyrus, I'm not really sure what happened to him. With Team Galactic taken care of and all the badges obtained, it's time to finally confront the Elite Four. But first, Victory Road. The true test of all trainers playing Pokemon games. And it's brutal. High-level trainers, high-level Pokemon with a very high encounter rate, puzzles, and tons of HMs required. I kind of like how tough Victory Road can be in certain main series games. Aside from the heavy and varied HM usage, I like everything else about Victory Road. I want the final test before the Elite Four to be tough. It's demanding all the skills you've learned both in battles and the overworld throughout the game. The rewards strewn throughout feel justified. You're getting rare items and TMs vital to the final fight, like rare candies, max revives, and TMs like Dragon Pulse and Dark Pulse. After emerging from the labyrinth, you're at the Pokemon League. And thud. The final fight with Barry is tough. He's a diverse trainer just like you. His Snorlax is really annoying because it's beefy and can use rest to heal itself. Then the Staraptor he uses is an absolute beast, but after the battle with Barry Thud, it's time. The Elite Four. The Elite Four in Diamond and Pearl would prove to be the hardest Elite Four for me yet in these videos. Despite only training 4 Pokemon and battling most trainers I saw, and even some grinding before I started, I was severely underleveled. My average level range being around 46 compared to their high level Pokemon pushing near 70. Aaron is the first Elite Four member and is a bug type trainer. As a Heracross lover, I like Aaron, but it was actually his Dustox that gave me fits. I wasn't expecting that. Next up is Big Bertha, the ground type trainer. I like her team because it's got a little of everything from every generation up to this point. Since I had chose Turtwig, Torterra made this a formality and we breezed right through her. Flint is the third Elite Four member. He's a fire type trainer. Turns out this guy has more non-fire types than he does fire types. What? He also had an Infernape, which was kind of cool to see. His Rapidash slaughtered me. It did the old sunny day into instant solar beam strategy that we learned back in Generation 3. Lucian is the final Elite Four member specializing in psychic types. Lucian's Bronzong is about the most tanky Pokemon I've ever had to fight. Their Mr. Mime also sets up a Reflect and Light screen to further beef the team up and sustain the fight for even longer. After Lucian though, that's it. You've conquered the Elite Four, but we've not conquered the champion. It's finally time for Cynthia. She is understandably very powerful. She leads with her Spirit Tomb, which is weak to nothing in Generation 4. Yippee! What crushed my team repeatedly was Garchomp. This thing chomped up my team and spit it out numerous times. It took every little bit of strategy to somehow beat it, but once Garchomp goes down, the rest of her team is still good, but eventually will fall with much less heroics. I do declare, Cynthia is the hardest champion yet by this time in the series. That may be subjective, I get it, but her team is so good. She has a Pokemon who literally has no weakness. Her Garchomp is nearly level 70 when my Pokemon were closer to level 50. After Cynthia is defeated, you are now the champion of the Sinnoh region. After the credits roll, the game is far from over. One of the main things to obtain is the National Pokedex upgrade. In order to get that from Professor Rowan, you need to have seen but not caught all of the Pokemon in the original Sinnoh Pokedex. This means seeing them in the wild or seeing them in battle. While I like this idea, it can still be tough to track down some of the missing entries. If you happen to miss any overworld trainers, you may miss a few entries, causing you to backtrack to previous areas or trying to find them in the wild. Once we're back in Twin Leaf, we're told that Barry has head to Snow Point to catch a boat to the Battle Zone. The Battle Zone is a subregion of Sinnoh located on a separate island from Sinnoh. The Battle Zone is broken into 3 settlements. The fight area is a tiny port city where the Battle Park and Battle Tower are. The Battle Tower functions a lot like it has in the past few generations. Less a place for experience gain and more for harder battling mechanics that earn BP used to buy specialty items. When you first arrive here, Barry is of course eager to get started battling and just so happens to run into his dad. Palmer, like father like son, Palmer is actually the tower tycoon of the Battle Tower. The survival area is where you go to train for places like the Battle Tower. You can even find Barry here on Saturday and Sundays for rematches. The resort area is more laid back than the last 2 locations and is home to the Ribbon Syndicate. This is a place where you can dump all of your money on insanely expensive ribbons for your Pokemon. Then there is Stark Mountain with the strongest Pokemon in the game. This is also where you can find the legendary Pokemon Heatran. The Battle Zone is pretty extensive. It's not just these key locations. There are lengthy new routes to get to these locations as well. But back on mainland Sinnoh, there is still a lot to be uncovered. The Lake Trio Pokemon could have been caught before the Elite Four, but you can still go and catch them in their respective lakes. Regigigas, the leader of the Regis, is back at the temple in Snow Point, but it's going to require transferring Regirock, Regice, and Registeel over from the Hoenn games. Cresselia is this generation's roaming Pokemon. Giratina is also available. It's got to be one of the most badass Pokemon to date. Its ghost and dragon typing, its design, it's just so cool. It's going to have a lot more prominence a few years from now, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Manaphy can be obtained through a special event in the game Pokemon Ranger. This is a legendary Pokemon that can actually breed. Its baby form is Fione. I'm not in love with the way to obtain Manaphy, but what I like is that this is a reference to earlier in the game when Professor Rowan ponders the thought of legendary Pokemon evolving or breeding. I'm not sure if this was teasing a concept they never fleshed out or if it was just a one-time idea. I think for many, one of the more memorable things from this era of Pokemon was the Wi-Fi revolution on the handheld consoles. The DS could seamlessly connect to Wi-Fi in the comfort of your own home to participate in online trading and battling via the internet. The GTS was used to search for any Pokemon you may need in an attempt to trade for it. Now, since I never played these games back then, I can't speak on these features with any authority. And these services have been shut down through official means, but there are ways to interact with online features to this day through fan-run servers. What these fan servers can also provide are access to the Wi-Fi events and mystery gifts to this day. Ever since Generation 1, we've had to go to physical events in person to get certain Pokemon, Mew being the most famous example. With Generation 4, the Wi-Fi events started to take the place of physical events. During certain periods of time, Game Freak would have you connect to their services to unlock direct gifts that could be picked up at the Pokemart or even extended content that was already on your game but you couldn't access unless you had received something from the Wi-Fi events. Pokemon like Darkrai, Shaman, and God itself, Arceus. For all the complaining I've done about the old way the events were handled, I must give credit with this huge step in the right direction. Now everybody who owned the games and consoles could participate in special events. You just needed access to Wi-Fi, which was still maybe not that common. I remember having to use my friend's Wi-Fi for other video games back then. But back then, you could use the local libraries or internet cafes, at least in my case. Diamond and Pearl has a very impressive post-game. I would have expected this much post-game in an upper version, but I was pretty shocked when I realized just how much there was to do after the journey was seemingly over. It felt like a quarter of the game. The Pokemon Diamond and Pearl experience was okay. It's hard to get past the roster of this game. I like the new Pokemon, but I wasn't really given opportunities to catch them in a fair way that respected my time. The honey trees being a barrier to some of the new Pokemon was soul-crushing. Seeing so many Generation 1 Pokemon not only in the beginning of the game, but throughout was really disappointing. Seeing Machops and Machokes until basically the end credits isn't interesting. I have more understanding now for people who don't have rose-tinted glasses for Generation 2 like I do. Those same people didn't appreciate how many Generation 1 Pokemon were in the beginning of those games. HMs have become absolutely out of control. And why is Mindy so cruel? I do think there is a lot of potential in Diamond and Pearl though. I love the Sinnoh region itself. It's a Mount Stark contrast to the Hoenn region in terms of climate, yet has tons of its own diversity. Diversity in biomes, architecture, and setting. I love the new Pokemon like the starters, Lucario, and many more. Then the postgame is huge, tons of content to enjoy, legendary Pokemon to be caught. The story has a huge scale where the stakes have never been higher, although I would have liked a little bit more from Cyrus in terms of his origin, because I do find him interesting. I like how some of the Team Galactic members even admit they hardly understood what he actually wanted, but were swept up in him as a leader. Folks, that's all I've got for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Thank you to my YouTube channel members and patrons. Thank you to NovaArc, my newest paid patron. My Patreon is free. Being a paid member is totally optional. I don't want any barriers. Become a member over there to see intro teasers to my videos and see what's going on behind the scenes. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.